So, my name is Nora Joby, and today I'll try to share my experiences as a student in Japan, life in Japan. So, to introduce myself, I'm only a recent graduate of NIT Calicut. In fact, I was part of the 2014-18 EC batch. So, in this large group of people, I'm this little bobbing head here. So, yeah. And right now, I'm a student of Tokyo Institute of Technology. I'm doing my master's from the Department of Industrial Engineering and Economics of School of Engineering. So my department is like an umbrella department which has several researchers and professors who do not exactly fall into any one department like civil engineering or electrical engineering. So we are like an umbrella department. And my campus is actually blessed with beautiful scenery throughout the year. So during the spring, we have a row of sakura trees which bloom, and people from the locality come to enjoy hanami parties in our campus. And during the autumn, we have ginkgo trees, which become a bright yellow during the autumn season. And during the summer also, we have rolling green hills and bright green trees. And sometimes in winter also it snows. So our campus is really blessed with beautiful scenery throughout the year. And if I talk about my academic life in Tokyo, it would not be complete without talking about MEXT or the Monbukagakusho Scholarship. So, Monbukagakusho stands for the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology of the Japanese government. It is also known as the Japanese Government Scholarship. So there are two types of MEXT scholarship. There is also the embassy recommended MEXT as well as the university recommended MEXT. In the case of embassy recommended MEXT, the Japanese embassies at respect of each countries nominate a group of students for this scholarship, and the process starts from the Japanese embassies in each of these countries. And in the case of university recommended MEXT, the process is reversed. It starts from the university side. Each university in Japan nominates a group of students for the scholarship, and the Japanese government does the further processing and selects students. So both of these application process take approximately 1 year. So in the case of embassy recommended MEXT, the application typically starts around April, May of an year, and then you would be able to join around from from the April of next year onwards. In the case of university recommended MEXT, the application typically starts around September, October from the university side, and you would be able to join for your program at least from the exactly 1 year later. So September of the next year onwards. So for your information, in case you're interested to know more, I am also sharing a couple of links. One is about Indian Embassy recommended MEXT. So this is a scholarship that I received. I was an embassy recommended MEXT student. And I'm also sharing a blog which meticulously describes the entire process of embassy recommended MEXT as well as university recommended MEXT, in case you're interested. And I think one question I'm supposed to answer through this presentation would be why Japan? My answer to this question is quite multifaceted, so I'll try to answer this question towards the end of the presentation today. And to talk about my university life at Tokyo Tech or Tokyo Institute of Technology. One of the good things about my university, Tokyo Tech, is that Tokyo Tech has a large number of highly multidisciplinary programs. For example, we have a department called the Transdisciplinary Science and Engineering, which is a combination, which has several programs which combines civil engineering, environmental engineering, information communication technologies, and life sciences, everything together. So I'm someone who believes that to solve several social problems that we face today, or for solutions, we need to combine knowledge from different fields. So our curriculum also needs to be modernized in such a way. And in Tokyo Tech, one of the best things I like about Tokyo Tech is that we have highly multidisciplinary programs which combine several fields and tries to find solutions in a highly interdisciplinary manner. And another thing about Japanese universities is that we have a highly research oriented curriculum, especially at the postgraduate level. I guess it's like that all over the world, but especially in research universities, it's like that all over the world. But here it's more like from the final year of bachelor's or throughout the master's or PhD level, it's highly research oriented. So I feel like even in master's, there is less focus on teaching and more focus on research. And another great thing about Tokyo Tech is that it has a highly international environment. This is especially important in a Japanese university because, as you might know, Japanese universities are not generally that international in nature. But Tokyo Tech has been making several strides towards internationalization of education. And we have a large number of international students as well as international faculty, and it is more English friendly. So this is something I like about Tokyo Tech because we already have some mechanisms in place which makes life easier for international students. And we also have several international graduate programs or IGPs, which allows us to complete our entire degrees in English. So we will be able to take classes in English as well as complete our thesis in English. So we would be able to complete the entire program in English itself. So to talk about laboratory, it's that in Japan, most of your life as a university student is centered around the laboratory in which you are part of. And the entire university is organized into, the entire research in universities is organized into laboratories, which usually come under one professor or a group of professors. And the laboratory is usually named under the professor. So you say, when you talk about your identity as a university student, you would say, I belong to this laboratory. I come from the Suzuki laboratory of this department, something like that. So your laboratory is not exactly a room in which you're part of. It's more like a community in which you're part of. A group of students who who undertake research under a particular professor. So this is a picture of my laboratory. You can see the flags there representing the countries of students who are part of the laboratory. So if I talk about my research, I belong to the affective laboratory, and we research on human emotions for engineering and management applications. And our motto of the lab is to make people happier. So the major research themes that happen in my lab are affective technology or affective AI, how to use emotions in technology and AI. It also includes several areas like human factors, ergonomics, design, etc. And another major theme is about human robot and human agent interaction, gerund technology or design for elder adults, and affective management using which leverages several features of human emotions, and how affects human interactions. These are some research themes in my laboratory. And my lab environment is also very interesting. First thing is that our lab is very international in nature. We have a large number of international students coming in as master's, PhD students, as well as exchange students as part of the laboratory. And another great thing about my lab is that we have a good male-female sex ratio. We have a large number of female students as part of our lab. And we are also very intimate with each other. Maybe it's because we are part of a affective laboratory which focuses on human emotions and human intimacy, how to make people happier. but we are really like a close-knit group, and this is my professor. So we really feel home and happy in our laboratory. And my professor is also a person who strongly believes that research is not a one-person job, but more of a team job. So he really focuses and invests into making sure that all of us are like a closely knit group. So we have international days conducted in which we learn about the cultures of different countries, usually of one of the students in our laboratory. So this is photo from the Iranian day, and this is photo from UK day. So we learn about the countries, we learn about their culture, we have their food. So that way we learn more about, we become more global and internationalized that way. And this is a photo from our session of music recording, because we used to do team activities, especially before COVID. We used to have things like we would record a Japanese song together. So this is my professor here, and we are recording music together. And this is the corridor in front of my lab, which truly demonstrates the international nature of my lab. And in my lab, we also have some social robots. You might already be familiar with Pepper here. It's a social robot that is very commonly seen in all over Japan and probably a few places abroad as well. And we also have Navo. This robot is Navo. We have two Navos in our lab. And our latest addition to this to our lab is Lavot. Her name is Happy, and she is a big hit in our lab right now. People just come in just to cuddle with her, because Happy Lavot is a robot which it is focused on making you happy. It would respond to your hugs. You can cuddle with it, and you can put it to sleep. It's more like petting a baby. So, if I have time, I'll show you some videos of Lavot at the end of this presentation. And you might be wondering how an engineer studies something like psychology. What is the relevance of studying psychology or emotional psychology being an engineer? So, until 20 years ago, the general concept about emotion was that emotion and cognition are two separate things that drive action, human actions. But recently, in the last 20 years, especially in the field of neuroscience, have shown that emotion and cognition cannot be separated as such. Now we have $1 billion being invested into the field of studying human cognition in the hope that we can apply it to AI. But when we study about humans, it would not be complete if we do not study about emotion, because our cognition is largely driven by emotion as well. So you might already be familiar with, uh, if you have encountered behavioral economics, this book, Thinking Fast and Slow or Predictably Irrational. These books really communicate to you that cognition and emotion are not something that you can separate from each other. So, and especially this becomes important when you design systems that are aimed at interacting with humans. We need to think about how humans would interact with systems that we develop. And to talk about my research, I am especially interested in the process of emotional contagion. Emotional contagion is the process how which emotions spread from one person to another person and through a community. So there are several dimensions to this, or several mechanisms through this happens. First is very automatic or less conscious way of emotional contagion, which is usually attributed to the mirror neuron. So when we see someone else raise their right hand, the same neurons associated with raising our own right hand gets activated in our brain. This is what we call a mirror neuron in neuroscientific terms. So this is the same thing happens with emotions. When we see another happy person or a sad person, that we are also in a way infected with their emotion. This is a natural, primitive way in which emotional contagion happens. That's why we say he infected me with his happiness or with his energy. So this is something natural which happens, and is also it is a primitive form of empathy because we are putting ourselves in their place and we are able to relate with the other person. So emotional contagion can also happen in the context of a social comparison theory, how we put ourselves in a social context and behave accordingly. For example, if we are surrounded by a group of sad people, for example, if you walk into a funeral, we don't laugh out loud. We would be surrounded by people who are sad, and we also would be sad. It's this kind of emotional contagion is more deliberate in nature, how we fit ourselves into a social context. So this is the second type of emotional contagion, and specifically for my research, I want to apply emotional contagion into the field of human agent interaction because my background is more about electronics and communication, machine learning, AI, and all. So I want to apply the concept of emotional contagion into human agent interaction. So right now I'm in the process of developing my hypothesis for research, which I want to validate through experiments. So this is my status of research right now. And one of the biggest things I learned while during this time here in Tokyo Tech as a researcher here in Tokyo Tech is how an engineer and a social scientist differently approaches problems. I have felt that as engineers, we are often very focused on finding or often very focused on the elegance of the solution, or like how elegantly we solve a mathematical equation or write an algorithm. Or we take a lot of pride in the complication of the systems we develop. But then, how a social scientist usually approaches the same problems is just to see how if it works or not. Ultimately, if we develop a very complicated system and at the end it doesn't work in the same way as humans expect it to, then we both needs to go to hand. Both needs to go hand in hand. So this can be demonstrated in the case of uncanny valley. You might be familiar with this. So when we develop sophisticated robots that can talk to you, that can communicate with you and interact with you, we are often focused on the development part of it. But then when you talk with a complicated robot like Sophia, but then what do you really feel? You feel a little cringy because it's human, it's kind of human, but it's not exactly human. And it sends chills down your spine. So this uncanny valley effect has been studied or used in many things like zombie movies or movies with little girl ghost. So when we develop an elegant solution to a problem, we also need to make sure it works. So this is some learning curve I had while during my period here in Tokyo Tech. Now I'll talk about life in Japan in general. So I guess the first question that would be about what is the COVID condition in Japan right now. So this is the status of COVID, new cases of COVID in Japan over the last 1 year. So we think we are in a third wave right now, third large wave, but life is pretty much going on as normal, as in we are working from home and occasionally we go to university, and many companies are still enforcing work from home very strongly. And people always wear masks and we have alcohol and alcohol sanitizers everywhere. So it doesn't feel very different. And especially in the period of April and May, we had emergency period in which we were very strongly recommended not to go out of the house. Other than that, I feel life pretty normal around here. And about Japanese or Nihongo, the infamously, notoriously difficult language. So, talking about Japanese, Japanese has three different scripts. One is hiragana, it's like 47 alphabets to write Japanese words, which came from Japan itself. And there is katakana to write words, for again 47 characters to write words that were imported from other languages. And there is also the 2000 or so kanjis, which this is a writing system which was imported from China, but the readings are different even in Japan. So kanji has two kinds of readings. There is kunyomi, which is the Japanese reading, and the onyomi, which is the Chinese reading. So both are used. So consider having to study 47 plus 47 plus 2000 characters itself, that too with different readings. And when you write a sentence in Japanese like kohi ga sugi desu, means I like coffee, you write kohi in katakana, ga and gides in hiragana, and sugi, the noun, in kanji. So all three come together when you write Japanese, and it's quite difficult, but it's also quite interesting. So during the first 4 months of my life here in Japan, my first 4 months were focused entirely on studying Japanese language. We had a Japanese language training program in my university. So even though it's difficult, it was one of the most rewarding experiences because it was really interesting to study Japanese. And I personally feel that if you speak Malayalam or Hindi, these languages, the grammatical structure of Hindi and Malayalam is very similar to Japanese, as opposed to Latin derived languages like English, Spanish, Portuguese, etc. So people who speak English find it quite difficult to learn Japanese, but I feel it's not as hard for people who already speak Hindi or Malayalam. So because the grammatical structures are similar. And to learn Japanese, there is, just like IELTS TOEFL, there is a Japanese language proficiency test, N5 to N1, N5 being the easiest and N1 being the native level, hardest level. So to get admitted to many Japanese universities, you need a decent level of Japanese if you're going to take Japanese classes. And to get into a Japanese company also, you often need Japanese proficiency level in N1 and N2 level. That is, N2 should be usually business level Japanese and N1 should be native level Japanese. So sometimes having a JLPT certificate, at least in N4 and N3 level, eases your opportunity to get into a Japanese university. So a JLPT certification is worth taking if we are considering moving to Japan. And to talk about work life in Japan, I personally don't feel very equipped to talk about this because I do not have personal experience working in Japan. But I'll talk about it based on what I've heard from other people. So, as you might know, Japan has a lot of multinational companies which hire for life. Instead of hire and fire culture, they have something more of a stable job. So I think of it like this: getting a job in a multinational company in Japan is like getting a government job in India, because they hire you to the company and they expect you to show loyalty for many years. And it's kind of stable also. They cannot fire you easily, and the work is also more stable in its nature. And about the job hunting process in Japan, it's also kind of very similar to what we are used to at NIT Calicut, except that the companies don't come to the universities. The people from universities go into job fairs or into the companies, attend their process in order to get the job. So, especially in the final or pre-final years of bachelor's or during the masters, people go into job hunting, job fairs, and job hunting processes. Go through the process, and graduation in Japan is in the month of April, and most companies have a rigid schedule which they adhere to year by year, and it is a fixed schedule. They start their job hunting process during approximately 1 year before graduation, and we have to keep to the deadlines if we are looking forward to uh, work by the end of our graduation. So it's quite strict. And there are two kinds of roles in job hunting process in Japan. First is the administrative or general position, which usually comes with job rotation, and there is also the second group for specialists and engineers and all. So the first one is more generic in nature, and it comes with job rotation every few years, and the second one is more specialist in nature. And there is also the new graduate hiring as well as mid-career hiring, both happens. And one good thing about Japan is that when they hire you to a company, they give you on-job training. So usually when they hire you to the company rather than to a specific role. So after you join the company, they specifically train you for the roles you are going to fulfill in the company after that. So they really look at your potential and your loyalty factor rather than your skills specifically. It is not unusual that they hire a person to a company and then they have to do a job that is completely different from what they are trained in through university life. So that is not unusual, but especially however, in the case of engineers and specialists, this is less usual. This doesn't happen that often, but generally, they give you training for whatever role you're going to do at the company. And you might have also heard about the overtime work culture in Japan that happens. Even now, it is not very unusual to have overtime work culture, and many companies are striving towards getting better at this. But still, many companies expect you to work overtime, and it's the norm in many places even now. And the language requirement is also another feature of Japanese companies. In order to be successfully navigate through a company, you need N2 level, business level Japanese at least. Uh, and recently, they have been relaxing language requirements, especially if you have good English skills. But even then, for many Japanese companies and many multinational companies which have branches in Japan, Japanese language is always a plus if you want to work here. And to talk about lifestyle in Japan, one of the greatest things I like about Japan is the safety culture. It's very safe here to walk out alone at night. Sometimes I come back to home at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night, and it's very safe and you don't feel alone or you can walk out alone at night without the fear of being attacked or robbed. So that is one great thing about Japan. And my friend Charlotte used to say how the greatest thing about Japan for her is that she can reserve seat in a pub just by leaving her iPhone on the seat. So that is something I guess you can do only in Japan. And people also talk about how if you lose a wallet or if you lose your important cards on the street, people would return to you, and you can always go to the nearby Koban, nearby police station. So usually they would be having things that you drop down the road. So that honesty culture is also there. And sometimes also people say that it's even if you leave your door unlocked, if you forget to lock your door when you move out, it's quite you don't have to be afraid of getting robbed. So I also forget to lock my door sometimes, but only to realize that okay, nothing happened. And another great thing I like about Japan is the civic sense that people show, how people feel that they are part of a society and show responsibility as citizens. I guess you might have seen this photo of how people line up to one side of the escalator always to let people who are busy or people who want to rush somewhere go through the other side. So typically in Tokyo side, if you go to any place in a mall or in a railway station, bus stand, wherever, you usually stand to the left side so that you can allow people to move through the right side. And there's also the infamous set of long etiquettes that you have to follow in Japanese trains. So in Japanese trains, you are supposed to set your phone to silent mode. You are not. You shouldn't talk on the phone. And there's also this, especially in Tokyo during rush hours, because it gets really crowded. You shouldn't wear your bag on your back. You move it to the front, and you you make sure that your bag doesn't hit anyone. And yeah, so there's a lot of train etiquette to follow in Japan that you naturally acquire once you are here for 1 or 2 months. And another infamous thing about Japan is that Japan doesn't seem to have any trash cans on the road, but then it's really clean. This is because people have a take your trash home culture. So even if you have some trash on the road, like an empty water bottle or plastic wrappers, you keep it with you and take it home and throw the trash at home. So even if Japan doesn't have a lot of trash cans on the road, it's still not littered and it's very clean. It's because people have a sense that they are part of the society and they are responsible for keeping their environment clean. And especially this civic sense matter. Civic sense matter became very important during the COVID pandemic because in many parts of the world, like US, when people were rebelling about wearing masks, Japanese people are very used to wearing masks because they know it's a kind of responsibility to society to make sure that you don't spread diseases through the society. So maybe it's easier to explain right now because there used to be a stereotype that because the mask culture was already very common in Japan even before COVID pandemic. So people were there was a stereotype that Japanese people wear mask because they are afraid of catching cold. But to bust this stereotype, the real reason why Japanese people wear a mask is first of all, it's not very taboo. The story of mask has a long history. It was around in Japan since the Showa Meiji era, almost 200, 300 years ago. And it's also, as I said just now, it's also about social responsibility because you don't want to give your cold or viruses to other people. And another big reason is because many people in Japan have pollen allergy, especially during the spring. And that is one big reason why many people wear masks. And especially during winters, it also acts like a moisture lock because it gets really dry here. So wearing a mask acts like a moisture lock. And there has been a survey about why people wear masks in many parts. So it So some women answered that they wear it because it's very convenient for no makeup days. Because in Japan, usually um, women are expected to be in good shape all the time. So if you have no time for makeup, people also wear it because of that. And now I think I'm equipped to answer the question, why Japan? So first reason is because I was really passionate about research. I always wanted to be a scientist. So uh, one of the biggest things that attracted me to Japan is Japanese R&D. So Japan has been a country which has been consistently investing in research and development, even during its hardest hit years in economy. So this allows Japan to invest in technologies that are more long-term oriented or more futuristic. So what do you call it research? This we call this blue sky research in Japan. It's more about exploring more possibilities, and Japanese R&D is one big reason that I came to Japan for pursuing research and higher studies. And the second reason I came to Japan is because I wanted to absorb the good parts of Japanese culture. For example, the civic sense is something I really adored about Japan for a long period of time. So I thought that if I was here in this culture for a period of time, it would help me absorb some of these qualities as a human being. And for example, I was not someone who was very punctual, or I found it really hard to keep time in many situations. But after coming here, I think I became a very punctual person. So there are some things that I really wanted to take absorb from this culture. So that is one another big reason why I came to Japan. And I also have a certain emotional attachment to Japan because this is not my first time here. In 2012, I was part of a student exchange program from the Japanese government. So I was a student ambassador from India to Japan, and we got exposure to Japan in terms of culture, history, and I also made some friends here. So maybe it's because of the emotional attachment of coming to that country you visit for the first time. So it was my first country to go abroad to. So it could be that, and I also had friends here. So when I moved to Japan, it was the presence of friends was really a big support for me. And another big reason is that the environment of Japan is very hospitable, especially because we are moving abroad, especially that too alone. It really made my life easier to be in a society in which people were more caring and forgiving and nice to you. I know it sounds silly, but it really helped the transition from home to here. And of course, the biggest reason to move to Japan is because of MEXT. The Japanese government was ready to fund the higher studies here, so that is also another big reason to come to Japan. With that, I would like to conclude. Thank you, and I would like to listen to your answer your questions and hear your